that. So we'll send that to people who've registered that haven't been able to make it. And I'll actually send it to everyone. So you'll get a copy of this if you miss anything. Okay, so I'm Elizabeth Harvey. I am making two dishes tonight. I'm doing a lamb and green bean casserole, and I am doing an Indian spiced roast pumpkin curry. And we've got Kay is doing a ratatouille, a gut health chickpea ratatouille, which is beautiful. We had that on the weekend. And Claire is making a chorizo and chicken and chickpea stew. So you're in for a bit of a treat. And yeah, we've got lots of tips and things to tell you while our Thermomix is busy doing the cooking for us. So
how excited I am to see so many of my customers on here. It's such a thrill. It's it always makes my heart go pitter-patter when I see so many of my old friends and customers on here. You know who you are, so it's very exciting to see you tonight.
Yeah, it's so nice. We love being supported in our cooking classes, and we love supporting you with our cooking classes as well. And we haven't done one as a team for a little while, so we've had a bit of stuff happening, and I think it's been since February. So it's nice to be back. And thank you for joining us. And I think that you will really enjoy this class, because who doesn't love all of these wintry sorts of dishes? I know I do. It's probably my favorite time to cook. Okay, so I'm going to get started with our lamb and green bean casserole. And I put this in my meal plan, so I've already pulled it right up nice and easily. And what you can do is just press on that arrow there, and then you won't be able to see much because it's a lighter screen, but that takes you right through the recipe. So you can open that screen to start getting organized. If you need to skip a step as well, you can just press on the number of where you'd like to start. I'll show you that with another recipe because I have prepped the beginning of some of them. All right, so we are just going to start cooking with this one, and I'm going to stand up because I can't reach the top of the bowl. So here we go. All right, this is probably a recipe that if you love using your slow cooker, you will really like this recipe. It does really remind me of how I used to cook pre-thermo, and we used to do a lot of stews because I was a bit time poor. So 150 grams of carrots, and that weighs it in. I am just going to do a little bit of explaining because we do have some non-owners on here tonight, and they just want to see how the Thermomix works, and so we'll include that tonight. And if you've got any questions, feel free to ask away. I think Kay's looking at the chat a little bit there while I'm cooking, and then I'll jump back on. We've just got some onions going in as well, so 200 grams of onions. And we want some olive oil. Okay, so you'll notice that sometimes the olive oil goes in before the recipe. Look, you can't see my head and you can't see the Thermomix here. Let me just pull this back a little bit. You might even get to see us both. All right. So the olive oil goes in first here, and then it will give it a chop. I do really like it when it does that, but it doesn't do that for all of the recipes. 4 garlic cloves, I'm putting in 5 because they're small. Okay, and it also asks for fresh thyme. Now, I didn't have any thyme in my garden, but I did have oregano, and I know that oregano goes well with lamb. And, you know, I'm not a fan of going and spending, you know, $3 for a container of something that I could substitute. So feel free just to go off the recipe. You don't need to do everything that the recipe says. I know when the Thermomix is new, you often feel like you want to do that, but you really don't need to. You can swap like for like really, really easily. So that's just having a nice chop. Okay, and we'll just scrape that down. And then because the oil is all really nicely incorporated through there, it's got a nice fine chop. Imagine if you were doing that by hand, even just into, you know, sort of carrot rounds and diced onion. So we've probably saved ourselves, what, 5 minutes, because we want to save money and time. There's no point saving money and being in the kitchen your whole life, because that's It's no fun unless you really want to be in your kitchen your whole life. Okay, so 3 minutes there. Now I've got, hopefully you can hear me over that. Can you? Is that all right? Okay. Now what I want to show you while that's cooking is just a little bit about flavor bases, and I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully you can, I'll just take these girls off so you can see the whole thing. All right. I'm going to share my screen. And okay, now I want to talk to you about flavor bases right now, because that's effectively what we're doing here. We're getting the flavor started and then we will go on. I'm just going to press the preview button. You probably can't see me because I'm sharing the screen. But what we're doing here is making a really nice flavor base. And what I wanted to have a look at was something like this lamb casserole slow cook recipe base. So it's $2.30 here. Now you might sort of think, okay, well, I've got to put in tomatoes and stuff like that and adding it up. But then if we click on it, we'll have a look here at this recipe base, because what we wanted to do is just save you a little bit of money, you know, frequently. And we can have a look at what it does here. So we're adding lamb. We do that in this recipe. We've just done our carrots and onions in this one as well. We're not doing potatoes, but you could serve this with a really nice mashed potato. We will be adding diced tomatoes as well. So really what this, what we're making here, I'll pull up the recipe so you can see the recipe. So instead of $2.30, all you're really adding is a little bit of wine, and use a cheap wine, otherwise you could really blow the budget there. And some stock, and probably a tablespoon of tomato puree, some bay leaves and a cinnamon stick. So that's our flavor base. And I believe that I'd be able to do this recipe cheaper than that $2, what was it, $2.30. So you're just saving little bits of money. You're also saving little bits of health. You can have a look. So we've got, this one's not too bad, but yeast extract, that would probably be MSG. That's another name for MSG. And you're just shopping from your pantry, and that will save you a lot of money. Now I just want to open this up because we will be putting stock into our dish tonight. And have a look at this. I know most of us are owners on here. So continental stock pot beef. I know some of you probably have bought this before, which is totally fine because you want to balance the time that you've got in your day with the money that you want to spend. But this is, have a look at this. This is 28 grams, I guess times 4 because it's 4 pots, and it's $4. Now think about our veggie stocks and beef stocks and chicken stocks that we make and how much that makes. It's at least a litre. And so what? Instead of 120 mils, you're using your old vegetables out of your crisper and getting about a litre of stock. So we're really, really saving a lot of money there. So the stocks and the flavour bases, just making it up yourself is one really good way that you can save some money. Now we're back at the recipe here. Does anyone have any questions with that? No? All right, so next in, we have got lamb shoulder. Now the cuts of meat that you use will really make a difference with the price of your recipe. And what the recipe says here is that you could use lamb shoulder or neck. Now, if you're organized, you'll be able to get lamb neck a lot cheaper than you would be able to lamb shoulder. But you will need to go to a butcher and you probably will need to give them a little bit of notice. They probably get a lamb delivery maybe 3 times a week. So you want to get that, they'll separate it out for you and save it for you if they know that that's what you want. That'll save you some money. Now with this recipe, it's diced. I got shoulder because I was disorganized and I got it today. So they diced it up for me, but it wasn't fine enough for this recipe. So this cooks for about 40 minutes. And so I diced it up quite a bit smaller. I think I chopped each bit that they had chopped in about 4. You could have asked them to dice it finely, but I wasn't thinking of that when I ordered it. And your lamb shoulder, again, will be cheaper than your lamb leg, but it just does take that little bit longer to cook, but it's really suited to this type of recipe. So this is 800 grams, will go in. Here we go. I have got a video somewhere, I don't know where it is, teaching, my husband's a butcher, so teaching you how to bone this out yourself if you wanted to. That's cheaper again, because you're buying the bone in, and you can use that for other things, whereas the butcher will charge you for the bone even if you're buying diced, and they will just throw it out. Okay, so lamb shoulder goes in. We want some red wine going in there. I'll tell you, this is a little cheat I have done, because we're all about cost saving at the moment, this is just grape juice, and it tastes really nice. It's a lot cheaper, and we don't generally have wine at home, so good replacements if you don't have wine and you don't want to buy a bottle just for cooking. You can use, say, grape juice. It's a little bit sweeter, but I think it comes through, it has a really nice flavour. You can use tomato puree as well, is another good substitute, or just a bit more stock as well. All right, then we've got some tin tomatoes going in. That's a way you can save on the tin tomatoes. This is quite an expensive brand, but you can get cheaper ones. But I do really like how thick this one is, and so that's the one I often will get if it's on sale. Now it says this recipe is a little bit tricky. We'll put the recipe in the chat, and I think it's a UK recipe, so you need to open up your filters, which we'll show you as well. But this recipe will say 200 grams of meat stock. Now, this is a veggie stock. I only ever have veggie stock. You don't want to put 200 grams of this one in. It will be way too salty. That's talking about a liquid stock, and you will really only know by how much it's asking you to put in, and it will really say meat stock paste if you want the paste. So just pay attention for that. I think we've ruined a dinner that way when my boy was cooking, and put, I think, 500 grams of vegetable stock paste in the meal, and it was inedible. So yeah, just pay attention to that. So I am really scraping the bottom of my jar here. So you'll be close to a tablespoon of the veggie stock paste or the beef one in there, and then you want to use water to top up the rest. So I didn't have that prepped, just to make up the liquid content to the 200 grams. So we've got the scales open there, and we'll just weigh that in. Okay, so that's including the stock and the water, that takes it up. You can have a look at the tips in the veggie stock paste recipe and the meat stock paste recipe. Have a look at the tips, and it will tell you that ratio if you can't remember. We want some tomato puree. This is another thing that you can, well, I just made a mess. You can have a look at this. I just dropped it everywhere. You can make that yourself. Buy that in season. You wouldn't want to be making tomato paste at this time of year. It would be way too expensive. So do that in summer. And then we've got some dried bay leaves going in. Another thing, if you've got a friend with a bay leaf tree, we've got a beautiful consultant, Oxy, who I'm sure most of you know from our classes. She's always bringing us bay leaves, which is great. Cinnamon stick goes in. I love the flavor base of this recipe. It's really, really nice. It smells great when it's cooking. So that just cooks for 10 minutes, and then we put it back on. It cooks it for 10, a little bit lower, higher at 100, and then it drops back to 90 for about 30 minutes. And that's basically the recipe. So I won't show you any more of this one, because that's it. It's so super, super, super easy, and great for the TM5 owners and the TM6 owners as well. So that's a good one. Now I am going to pass over to Claire, and she will get going with the chicken stew.
Hey everyone, my name is Claire. I live in Wilton in the Wollongilly area, but I'm part of Elizabeth's Cold Coast team. But I do work down down the coast at Shell Harbour, so I'm down in the Illawarra quite a lot. Yeah, chicken, chorizo and chickpea stew. This is really yummy. We do this quite often for meal prep. Both shift workers in our house, so we try to do a lot of meals in advance for lunches and dinners, depending on what shift we're on, because there's nothing worse than having no food when you go to work and having to spend lots of money on takeaway and stuff. So we'll get started. So nice and simple recipe, not a lot of ingredients. We're placing the 6 sprigs of fresh flat leaf parsley into our bowl. And popping the lid and the cup on, and we're just going to blitz those for 3 seconds. Okay, we're going to transfer that into a bowl and set aside. I love the Thermomix for cooking stuff. 3 seconds. Like, who wants to stand at a board and with a knife and do that for 5 minutes. So this is a good recipe as well because there's no washing of bowls in between or pulling out the second bowl if you have one. So yeah, really nicely fine chopped parsley. So we'll pop the bowl back on. Now we've got 30 grams of olive oil. So like Elizabeth's saying, the scales are part of the Thermomix. It's already inbuilt, which are on the feet underneath. So we can weigh directly into the bowl and not have to get any other bowls or anything dirty. So we've got 30 grams. Now, I apologise if you hear someone talking in the background. It's actually my parrot. He doesn't like the lights on at night and will scream if they're on. So sometimes he will often just chatter to himself. So now we're adding 150 grams of brown onions that are just cut into quarters. So they'll go in. Let's see how good my guess of 150 grams is for the onions. We've got 163, that's fine. Then we're going to pop the lid back on and we're going to blitz this for 5 seconds. So again, my biggest pet hate is chopping garlic and onion. I hate it. It just, everything smells, you cry. And we've got perfectly blitzed onion and already coated with all that goodness with the oil, so it's ready to saute. So basically all it's asking me to do is scrape down the sides of the bowl so we can get all the onion down to the bottom of the bowl to cook along. And we're going to pop our lid back on. And now it's going to cook for 5 minutes at 100 degrees and we're turning it to speed 1. So essentially speed 1 is just your, sort of a low speed stir, like you'd be standing there over the cooktop, just sauteing your onions and getting them nice and soft. So while that's cooking for the sort of 5 minutes, I just want to speak to you about the glider board. You can probably notice that I've got that underneath my Thermomix. It's a product that has just been released by Thermomix not long ago. It's available from the Mix shop. The white resin one that I've got is $149.95, and there's also a beech wood that's in black and also a timber looking colour that's $119.95. I believe the black is on pre-order at the moment. This keeps your Thermomix nice and stable on the bench. But the best thing about it is because we need to protect the scales that are underneath the feet of the Thermomix, we all know that if we need to move our Thermomix, we can't drag it along the bench. We literally have to pick it up and move it where we need to. With this glider board, literally just with 2 fingers, we can slide along, even while it's cooking. All right, it's fantastic. For me, the ability now of when I'm doing a recipe and it gets to that longer part of cooking, probably where Elizabeth is up to with her recipe, I would normally start cleaning up in the kitchen, and normally I've got the Thermomix sitting on the bench and I can't really move it while it's cooking to wipe over that bench. With this, it's easy. Literally 2 hands, wipe your bench, pop it back to where you want it to go. I'll just quickly lift the Thermomix up just to show you. So you can see it's actually quite heavy. I think from memory it weighs about 2 kilos, this one. And you can see those little indents that are on the feet. And then on the back, it's got the bits where it will sort of glide along as well. The other thing is when it's actually in place, you lift it up, it moves. When you can't move it unless you lift it up that slight bit. So it will not move like at all. So great, like one of the must-gets, I reckon, for every Thermomix owner. I've even seen, I haven't tried it yet in the need mode, but I've seen videos of other consultants where they've got boards that they've gotten from other companies, and when they're kneading, the board's wobbling and moving around. And then there's the video of this one, and it's just sitting nice and snug, firm on the bench and not moving at all. So really good if you've got it, you know, your Thermomix tucked away in a little bit of a corner and you just want to bring it out, make it a bit easier for your cooking. So we've got about 2 minutes to go before we move on.
Okay, fantastic. I will just have a quick chat about the new modes demo that we have coming up. First, what I will show you is what I would probably serve most of these dishes with is the mashed potatoes. Now, there's a really great one, and I will find that. Here we go. Peeler mashed potatoes. Again, it's not in the Australian site. I'll show you just shortly how to do that when we've got a bit of time. So this peeler mashed potatoes is a fantastic one. You do need the blade cover, but if you would like to get the blade cover, if you don't have that, we've got a new demonstration coming out, and it is, you can get the blade cover when you host that particular demonstration for half price. And it's a demonstration all about the modes. Now, I know some of you might have been to our modes cooking class, and just exploring the modes and really getting your head around how they work is a great way to understand the Thermomix more and more. So here's the menu. Let me just scroll down to the right page. Okay, here it's a brunch menu. It's really beautiful, and you can get that peeler half price, so you'll save about $40. So we do poached eggs. Who doesn't want to poach eggs in their Thermomix? Hollandaise sauce, a green smoothie, these cheese and bacon scones. We can do those gluten-free, and we can also make cheese and chive scones for the vegetarians. And then you choose between one of these, a fresh tomato chutney or a celery leaf gremolata. It's a really beautiful menu. It's like an Eggs Benedict, but yeah, so simple, so easy to make at home. And so I just encourage you to book in for one of those modes demos if you can. We'd love to show you. So, and you can get your blade cover half price. Did I take 2 minutes?
Yeah, pretty much perfect. I just had enough time to take the lid off. All righty. There's our lovely sauteed onions ready to go. So now we are adding 120 to 130 grams of chorizo that is cut sort of thinly. So they just pop in. And then we've got 40 grams of tomato paste. I've just got the sachet. Obviously, it's a lot cheaper if you have a jar, but there's only 2 of us at home and we don't have a lot of it. And I find that it tends to, if I don't freeze it, it'll tend to go off quickly. 400 grams of diced tomatoes. Got them on special today for 80 cents. So there's certainly some bargains out there if you're prepared to have a look. And then we've got some skinless chicken thigh fillets that have just been cut in half. So there's not a lot of preparation in this dish because you're literally, you know, just quickly running your knife through each of the fillets. You're not having to sit there and dice it or anything like that. And as you can, like 800 grams, you know, it's a decent serving for the family. Okay, now we've just got a tablespoon of some dried oregano. Love the smell of oregano. And then we've got some salt to taste. And then a pinch of ground pepper to taste. Then we're just going to stir it with the aid of the spatula, just to make sure that chicken's all mixed in through to with the tomatoes and stuff, and we're not having any sort of dry patches. Okay, so lid back on, and we're going to cook that for 10 minutes at 100 degrees. The Thermomix has already set the blade to reverse, so that way it's not going to be breaking up like shredding the chicken. And we just want that on speed spoon, so just a nice little gentle stir. So we'll get that cooking for the next 10 minutes and we can start off with someone else's dish.
Thanks, Claire. We're moving over to Kay with our ratatouille, and it's a gut health ratatouille. You're on.
Here I am. Hi, guys. Again, thanks for joining us. It's really lovely to see so many familiar faces, friendly faces. So yeah, chickpea ratatouille has been on my favourite list for the last couple of weeks. And it started off as a recipe that was inspired because of the ingredients that I had. So I actually was given some eggplants that needed honouring, as in they needed to be used or they were going in the compost bin. So I searched through the cookie dough using the ingredients that I had to use. So we're all talking about trying to save money at the supermarket, and in the kitchen today is our focus. So searching on cookie dough with the ingredients that are staring at you from the crisper, from the fruit bowl, or from the garden is a great way to do that. So to find this recipe, I typed in eggplant. I also had been gifted a whole lot of capsicum as well. So it was a comma, a space, and a capsicum. And I may have put something else in there, I can't remember. But what happened is this recipe came up and I just looked through it and I thought I have everything else that I need for this recipe. And I made it, and that was a couple of weeks ago. And it was such a hit with my colleagues and my family that I wanted to share it with you today. And it's a little bit unusual for a Thermomix recipe in that the vegetables are actually baked or fried first and added to the recipe later. So when you make this recipe, you will be using either the stovetop, the oven, or what I did was I used my air fryer. So what I've done before I joined you today is I've air fried my my capsicum and my eggplant, and the recipe said zucchini, but I didn't have any, so I just used some pumpkin. So I've actually done that before joining you tonight. But as part of the recipe, you would be doing it on the stovetop or the air fryer whilst the sauce is cooking in the Thermomix to save time. So vegetables are done. And so therefore I'm going to go into my recipe, and it's called chickpea ratatouille, and it's got gut health written after it. So this is from a collection of recipes that a nutritionist has made, all talking about gut health. So I don't need to do the first step of the recipe, which is heat a large fry pan and fry the vegetables. So what you can do, as Elizabeth mentioned, you can always slide through a cookie dough recipe and just press on the step or the part of the recipe that you want to start at. So I'm actually going to start at step 2, which is popping my lemon zest in. So I've got some lovely organic lemon from my garden, which is lots and lots of lemons at the moment. So, and what I've done is I've just zested it with a vegetable peeler. So I've got this fantastic vegetable peeler from the Thermomix kitchen toolkit. And I really like this peeler because it doesn't take it too thick into the rind, and therefore you don't get the white part, which is the pith, which is bitter. So you just get that lovely flavoursome zest there. But the other thing I like to do before I put lemon zest into the Thermomix is I often will pop it in a little bit of paper towel and give it a little squeeze just to get a little bit of excess moisture out of there, because it will chop better when it's not damp. So when things are damp and they're chopping in the Thermomix, they tend to stick a little bit more to the side of the bowl than being pushed back onto the blade. So by squeezing it with that little piece of paper towel, I can then get a better chop. So in it goes. One lemon zest only, no white pith. Pop the lid on. 40 seconds on speed 8. Go. Okay. You guys get the gist of that. I'm not going to worry about the whole 40 seconds. You can do that if you like, but I'm pretty happy with that chop there. So lemon zest is going to come out now and just be added a little bit later to the recipe. Oh, it smells so good. So that's part of your building up your flavour. And with that paper towel full of lemon zest, you can stick that in your underwear drawer, if you like. Never wasting anything. Okay, transfer into a small bowl and set aside. So without cleaning the bowl, we love that. We love that in a recipe, don't we? It's asking for 5 garlic cloves. Now, I don't know if you've noticed lately, but there's lots of little tiny garlic cloves in our marketplace at the moment. And guess what? Mine are going in without me taking the skin off, because I cannot be bothered to skin a garlic clove that big, and you'll never know it's in there, okay? So that's going in, 5 garlic cloves. And the other thing is that's going in today, we're supposed to be using basil with this recipe. I don't have any basil in my garden. It's winter. It's $4 at the supermarket. I'm not going to buy it. So I've just used parsley. I've got lots of it. And one of the wonderful things about this recipe also is that it asks for the stalks to go in. So we're putting the stalks in, and of course it would normally be basil, but today it's going to be parsley. So I think parsley stalks probably a bit harder than basil, so it might need a little bit longer to chop. So I'm throwing in the garlic cloves and the stalks of the parsley. Okay, and we're going to pop the lid on, and 6 seconds on speed 6 should sort that out. Let's have a look. Scrape down the sides of the bowl. Not bad. I'm pretty happy with that. All right, so scrape down the sides of the bowl. We're now going to add, actually that looks great. You know, those stalks have come up just fine. We're now going to add a little bit of red onion. So we've got 1 onion quartered. We'll throw that in and pop the lid on. 4 seconds on 5. And we're just going to add a little bit of oil. Now, the other thing I was going to mention, I'm using, you know, good quality olive oil. The other thing I was going to mention, with this recipe, when it asks you to put the vegetables on the fry pan, it asks for 3 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil. Now, I love olive oil, don't get me wrong, but it's also very expensive. So when I did it in my air fryer, I just used one of these things that you get from the supermarket, and I just spritzed a little bit of oil in there. So I'm reducing the oil right down in that recipe. So I'm saving money and not quite as much fat content in my dish. So just thought I'd mention that. So we're just going to add a little bit of olive oil now to saute this off. Popping our lid on. And it's 5 minutes on the cook at 100 degrees. So Elizabeth, have you got something else you'd like to do while that's happening?
Yes, we can go on to the Indian spiced roast butternut and chickpea curry. So we'll get started with that one. What I have done to prepare this is the first part of the recipe where you roast the pumpkin, and normally you keep going on with, hold on, I just need to swap the spotlights. Wait a second. Normally you will roast this as you go on with the recipe, but I did that before because there's only so many things I can multitask. And it's 800 grams of pumpkin. There's a bit more there because I had a huge pumpkin that I'd started using last week and I needed to use the rest of it. This, you can really bulk this dish out. This dish makes a lot. It's a really good feed a crowd dish. So pumpkins roasted, that just had some cumin seeds on it and some olive oil, some coriander stalks and some chili flakes. So nice flavors in there. If you don't like coriander, feel free to probably use some parsley with that one. And again, if you've got parsley growing, I've got coriander in the garden, which is why I use it. You can't even find it in the supermarket at the moment. Yeah, so good luck with that one if you do want the coriander. So we've got some garam masala going in. You can make that yourself as well. So we just got a teaspoon going in, sorry. Now a mild chili powder. I use Kashmiri chili, the same one that the tandoori paste, which is really popular, uses. And it's a really mild chili, but it's got a nice color. So 1 teaspoon of that. This dish does come out a little bit spicy. My youngest girl doesn't love it because it's too spicy, but the rest of us do. And I don't drop the spice back. She just has to kind of learn to keep up with the rest of the family. All right, so a teaspoon of curry powder. This Bubba's curry powder is really quite delicious. You would need to go to an Indian shop to find that, or an Asian shop to find that. It's a Malaysian curry powder. So 1 teaspoon of that. If you cook any Skinny Mix's dishes, she uses a lot of the Bubba's. Okay, and then some ground coriander. So you'll find when the Thermomix is new, you're going to be buying all of these spices, and your first couple of shopping trips might be a little bit more expensive, but over time, it just becomes so cheap to cook. All right, 1/2 teaspoon of ground turmeric going in, the lid on, and that's just got 1 minute to cook there. I'm just going to really quickly show you how to do your filters with cookie dough, just in case you don't know that. It won't take long. All right, so we're in here, we're in the cookie dough now. And if I just press on the Thermomix, that takes us back to our main page. I'm just going to click the search button. Now you can see all my filters that I have on here. I have the blade cover and I have the peeler. If you have either one of those, the blade cover, peeler, or just the blade cover, go in up here under account and you can add what accessories you have. Now filters, really what I want to show you is down here, and I've got mine set up a little bit silly because I've got English ticked and Australia, which makes the English filter a little bit redundant. But if I just take off Australia there, that opens it right up. So a lot of the dishes that I've made tonight, I think both the dishes are from the UK or maybe even Canada. So if you just go down to the language, take off, or put on English, take off Australia, and you open up a lot more recipes that you can actually read. So it went from about 3,000 to about 9,000 there. All right, I'm just going to stop that. So I hope that's helpful for someone. All right, in we go with some tinned chickpeas. Now, chickpeas are one of those things that you could make yourself. Depending where you buy your chickpeas from, you can make them in the thermo. I've got the prices up there. If you buy your dried chickpeas from Woolworths, you're saving a little bit, but probably not worth the time, even though it's quick. Maybe not worth the time. But if you're going to buy your chickpeas in bulk, definitely worth the time. And while we've got a bit of time, I'll open up. I've pulled up the prices for coconut milks, and it's really interesting as well because that's something that you can cook and make yourself. So coconut milk going in. And some more tin tomatoes. Use a lot of tin tomatoes with the thermo because we're building all those bases. Okay, now this is something I made in the Thermomix just before we got started. Because this is a UK recipe, it says here 250 grams of ready-to-eat pie lentils, 1 pouch. I don't think we have anything like that in Australia. So that is something you will have to pre-make if you want to follow this recipe to the T, but it is very easy. And I'll come back to that while we've got a bit of time, just to show you what I used and how to cook it. All right, so then we're just putting the lid on. Simmering basket will go on the top. I'll just have to take those lentils out, and that cooks for 10 minutes. And you also just cook some rice to serve with this separately. And pretty much then we just mix the pumpkin through and some coriander leaves that you took off the stalks. And this one's done as well. So it's another really easy one. And it makes a lot because you've got all that pumpkin that you cooked in the oven and then all that sauce that's in here. So we'll go back to UK.
Okay, thank you. So we've cooked off our onion and our flavour there, and now we're just going to add our acidity. So we've got a little bit, we've got 2 tomatoes cut into pieces. So I've just quartered that. I've just dropped that in. And then we've got a can of crushed tomatoes. So that's going in there. Chopped tomatoes, it says. This one was crushed, so that's how it goes. And some balsamic vinegar. So 1.5 tablespoons. As you can see, I rarely measure anything, so that's about that. And I'll taste it at the end, obviously. And put the lid on. And 14 minutes on reverse speed too. That's it. So it wasn't much to come back to me. Sorry, Elizabeth.
That's all right. They're all very simple recipes. That's what's so good about these like rustic, home-cooked kind of comforting meals that I find they are really easy. So I think it's great because the days are shorter. Feels like you don't have much time. To make it easy meals is great. Let's go over to Claire. I think you got a step there, Claire? What are you up to? 1:33 to go.
A minute and a half to go. So basically all I've done since this was we went to you guys was it cooked for its time, and then it just asked me to stir it again with a spatula to make sure everything's all evenly through again. And it cooked for another 7 minutes at the 100 degrees, and we've just got a minute to go. And then after that, I think we're just adding the chickpeas, and that cooks for another 5 minutes or so. So, you know, how good is it to be able to just walk away and know that all you've got to do is wait for the beep and just follow the next step on the screen? You know, just, you know, you can go watch Netflix, you can go bath the kids, you can do whatever it is that you need to do. It's so good. And the other thing is the other thing that I find as well with 2 of us being here is if I go off to go do something like hang out washing or something and the Thermomix beeps, the next person can just step in and just follow the instructions. When you're cooking on the stovetop, you can't really do that because you don't really know what you're up to. Where anyone can jump in and follow the next lot of instructions and keep dinner sort of cooking along. And it's also good for the young ones too to follow recipes, follow the instructions on the screen, a little bit of hand-eye coordination with their measurements, and getting kids involved in the kitchen means that they're more likely to sit down and eat the meals as well. So it's really good getting the kids involved. Well, I managed to fill up that couple of minutes. So now we're adding some chickpeas. So it's a can of chickpeas. It should be approximately 250 grams once it's drained. So they'll just go in like that. And then all we're doing is basically popping that back on. And for 3 minutes, it's going to cook at 100 degrees, reverse. And that's it. 3 minutes time, dinner will be done.
Lovely, thank you. Okay, so that's the main cooking part done, but I will just open up I'm just going to share my screen and just show you those few other things that I wanted to show you, and then we'll see if our dishes are ready to show you. I've got the lamb one that I can show you here. So let me share here, and I just want to, there's a few other money saving things and interesting things that I want to show you about. So here we go. We've got the chickpeas up here. This is what I talked about just before. So you can get a can of chickpeas for 80 cents. It makes 420 grams. Now down here, if you were to cook it yourself, which you can do, you're paying $3 for 1 kilo. So that it is a little bit cheaper to make it yourself, but it's pretty close. I'll show you, I think I've got the recipe. No. Thought I had the recipe open. Yeah, here we go. Chickpeas. So here's a recipe. This is the TM6 one. There is a TM5 recipe for cooking your chickpeas. You put in 250 grams, a litre of water and some stock paste, which is optional. All you do is soak it overnight and then put your blade cover in and put it on slow cook for 2 hours at 98 degrees and they're ready. So that's nice and easy. Something that this is a great idea while you might, if you're buying it from Woolworths, whereas, you know, like Costco's got really cheap chickpeas and things like that, some bulk buying co-ops have got cheaper chickpeas, dried ones. But even if you've just got a bag on hand, that saves you those incidental trips down to the shops. We all know that every time you walk into the shops, you'll spend probably more than what you wanted to. So you don't want to have to go down the shops just for one packet of 1 tin of chickpeas or 2 tins of chickpeas, because you will spend probably $30, you know, rather than $1.60 for 2 tins of chickpeas if you're anything like me. Now we will open this up and I'll show you where you start saving a lot of money is things like using your chickpeas to make hummus. So instead of, you know, 200 grams of hummus for $5, where, you know, you've got a whole tin, which would make double that for 80 cents. So you're starting to save money there. A lot of money when you're making your dips and things. Yeah, so anything that you can make from scratch obviously is going to be a lot cheaper. Let's just have a look at coconut milk. So this was the one I used tonight. $2.35 for the coconut milk, whereas you can make it even cheaper by, there's a middle of the road step and it's not coming up on here, so I'm going to stop the share and show you. So this one is about the same price as a tin, probably a little bit more, and this makes up to, so that it's got 3 sachets that'll make up 250 mils. These are good to have in your pantry for when you run out of coconut milk and you've also a bit short on time. But the best way to make coconut milk, let's have a look at this. Okay, so here's our coconut milk recipe. We want to use 300 grams of desiccated coconut. And if we come back here, we've got, here's a packet, just a bit under 300 grams, but $1.80. And you would have 1 litre of coconut milk there. So 1 litre of coconut milk for $1.80, as opposed to you'd be paying almost $6 for that amount of coconut milk if you're using the tin. So that's a nice little saving there. What else have we got? I think that was mostly what, the pie lentils. I wanted to show you this as well. So there's no recipe actually just for cooking pie lentils on Cookie Do. I'm not sharing my screen. Hold on. So there's no recipe for just pie lentils, but this pie lentil dip cooks them at the beginning. So that's another tip. If you can't find, you know, something a little bit obscure, try the recipe community. That's got like 30,000 recipes, I think, on there. So they've always got a broader range than what Cookie Do has. So that's recipecommunity.com.au. But you can just look at the beginning of this recipe and it's got, place 700 grams of water in the mixing bowl and you heat the water. You could just boil the water for that step in the kettle. and then you can add your lentils and cook it for 20 to 25 minutes. And then you're just draining it through your simmering basket, and they're ready to go. That's actually a really nice, that's a nice just base to have in your fridge to add to salads and things like that. So yeah, that's a good one. Oh, so Debbie had a good tip there. So be careful with the coconut milk powder, this one, if you're dairy free, because it has a cow's milk protein in it, and it does, yeah, milk protein. So another little tip to be careful of. With the coconut milk, all you need to make it is just coconut, water, your Thermomix, and then you squeeze it through what's called a nut milk bag. Do you guys know what that looks like? I think I've got one here. No, I've used it. And you just wash them, so it's probably gone into the wash. Oh, Kay's got one. Here we go. I'll spotlight you, Kay. There it is. So it's just a fine cotton bag or a muslin bag or a mesh bag that you put the coconut and the water, once it's all been mixed together and chopped together, through the bag, and the coconut milk just comes out the bottom. So you can do that for, if you're dairy free, making nut milks, you use those nut milk bags. Is a really cheap way to have nut milks as well. That's just a couple of ways to save money with your Thermomix. We could really just go on and on and on. If you do want to save money, and there's something that you spend, like you could even put it in the chat here or just reach out after the class. If there's something you feel like you spend too much money on, let us know, and I'm sure that we can help you. That's what we do. That's what we train to do, is help you save money. So just let us know, and we can help you. Or if you've got a friend that you feel like needs a bit of help saving money, a lot of our classes are centered around that, or our demos will incorporate that in, because it is really important to everyone. Alyssa, the quantity was that recipe there was 300 grams of desiccated coconut to 1 litre of water. And to be honest, I do a lot less than that. It depends how thick you want your coconut milk, and you can make a coconut cream as well. Yes, it depends how thick you want that. You can certainly do less. How often do we do these classes? So we haven't done a class like this since February, but mostly we usually do them when we're in a bit of a roll, about monthly. So we'd love to have you on some more. We think that they're fun. Depending, sometimes we've got a lot more consultants around, and we will do more dishes, and you won't see as much of the dish. But tonight we just had the 3 of us, and so I liked it. It's a bit laid back, and we could show you a little bit more outside of the Thermomix, because the Thermomix is actually so easy to use. You don't really need to come to a class to understand how to use it. It's all of that extra stuff which you get out of the class, I think. So, oh, good. Yes. Yep. Looking for ideas. Okay. So Diane put in the chat. It's fabulous. She got her thermo around Christmas and is looking for ideas to use it as best as she can. Yeah. Yeah, these classes are really good for that. Having demos every so often, you can always access host rewards. That's another good way to learn. And your consultant will always want to come out and show the Thermomix to you and your friends. So don't hesitate to ask there. And we never expect a sale. If you sort of are waiting for someone to want to buy a Thermomix, don't, just host a demo. We love just to come out and talk to people who love the Thermomix. That's actually why some of us do this. I know Kay joined because her family kindly asked her to stop talking to them about it. And actually, Diane, a good way, and anyone else who's on here, a really good way to learn more about your Thermomix is to join us as a consultant. We train you up quite a bit. And yeah, so that offers there for anyone who would like to find out more. Sharon, I will email the recording out tomorrow. So you'll have that, and I'll put the links to the recipes and things in there as well. So we'll just, I might turn the recording off now and we'll just answer some questions if anybody has them.